It's Christmas night, 1996, Boulder, Colorado. Inside a sprawling Tudor home, 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey is tucked into her bed. Or at least, that's what her parents believed. They've just come home from a party. The house is lit up, full of presents. It's the perfect picture of an American family Christmas. But in the cold, quiet hours before dawn, that perfect picture is about to be torn to pieces. The next morning, just before 6 a.m., Patsy Ramsey comes down the back staircase, and there she finds it. Not a note slipped under the door, not a single sheet, but a rambling, bizarre, 3-page ransom letter. It claims her daughter's been taken by a small, foreign faction. It demands money. And just like that, a nightmare begins that will grip the entire world.
Those first few hours are chaos. At 5:52 a.m., Patsy makes a frantic, desperate 911 call. Police are there within minutes, but they're walking into what they believe is a kidnapping. The note gives a 10 a.m. deadline for a call. That time comes and goes. Silence. For 7 agonizing hours, the house is swarming with friends, family, police, all of them waiting. Until, at 1:05 in the afternoon, the truth is found. Not miles away, but right there, in their own home.
And right here, this is arguably the single greatest mistake of the entire investigation. Because they thought it was a kidnapping, the police didn't lock down the house. They didn't treat it like a murder scene. Friends came and went, they cleaned the kitchen, they used the bathrooms, they walked all over, potentially wiping away every critical piece of forensic evidence. The crime scene was contaminated before the crime was even fully understood. The chaos only gets worse. A detective, trying to be helpful, asks John Ramsey to search the house one more time. He heads to the basement, to a small wine cellar. And that's where he finds her, his daughter's body. In a moment of pure grief, he rips the duct tape from her mouth, unties her, and carries her upstairs. He lays her down at the foot of their Christmas tree. And in that one tragic act, any hope of preserving the crime scene was gone forever. The autopsy revealed a level of violence that was just brutal and deeply confusing. The official cause of death was strangulation, but JonBenét had also been hit on the head with incredible force, leaving a massive 8.5-inch skull fracture. 2 separate, horrific injuries, either one of which could have killed her. A crushing blow and a tightly wound garrote. And the murder weapon, it was disturbingly personal. Homemade, assembled from a piece of nylon cord and the broken handle of a paintbrush. The brush itself was found in Patsy Ramsey's own art supplies. But the top third of that handle, it was just gone. Never found. Another small, nagging piece of the puzzle that just doesn't fit. Then there's the ransom. The note demanded a very, very specific amount of money, $118,000. It's not a round number. It's not $1 million. It's odd. And that very specific number immediately raised a huge question. Well, here's the answer that changed everything. That number, $118,000, it was almost the exact amount of a work bonus John Ramsey had just gotten. Now, how on earth could a stranger, an outside kidnapper, possibly know that? That one detail suggested the author wasn't a stranger at all, but someone with intimate knowledge of the family's finances. And suddenly, the focus of the investigation started to turn inward. You see, this ransom note is probably the most bizarre piece of evidence in American crime history. It was written on a notepad from inside the Ramsey house, with a pen from inside the house. It's incredibly long, 2.5 pages. Experts figure it would have taken at least 20 minutes to write. Think about that. What kind of intruder would take that risk? And the language is just weird, full of lines from movies like Dirty Harry and Ransom. It felt fake. It felt staged. And all this weirdness created a huge split in law enforcement. On one side, you had the Boulder Police Department. Their lead investigator, Steve Thomas, was laser-focused on the family. He believed all the evidence pointed to a staged crime scene. But on the other side, you had the DA's office. They brought in a legendary detective, Lou Smith, and he became absolutely convinced that an unknown intruder was the real killer. This divide, it would cripple the investigation for years. Lou Smith's case for an intruder was compelling. He pointed to unidentified male DNA found on JonBenét's clothes, a boot print in the basement from a brand of shoe nobody in the family owned, strange marks on her body that he was sure came from a stun gun, a broken basement window with a suitcase placed perfectly underneath it, almost like a step stool, and a bowl of pineapple left on the kitchen table, which just didn't square with the parents' story that JonBenét was asleep the whole time.
But the Boulder police, they had their own list, and it was just as convincing. The ransom note was written inside the house. Handwriting experts could never fully rule out Patsy Ramsey as the author. Fibers from a jacket she owned were found on the blanket wrapped around JonBenét. John Ramsey himself had moved the body. And their stories about what happened that night, well, they kept changing.
The handwriting on that ransom note became a huge battleground. The experts looked at it again and again. They definitively cleared John Ramsey. But Patsy, that was a different story. The results were inconclusive. They couldn't say for sure that she did write it, but they found enough similarities that they couldn't say she didn't either. And that ambiguity just left a permanent cloud of suspicion hanging over her. So by 1998, with the case completely stalled, they convened a grand jury. For 13 long months, behind closed doors, jurors listened to testimony and looked at thousands of pages of evidence. Then, in October of 1999, the district attorney, Alex Hunter, stepped in front of the cameras to make an announcement. But the real story of what that grand jury decided wouldn't be told for another 14 years. This is what the world was told. The district attorney announced that after all that time, the grand jury was done and no charges were being filed. The public was led to believe the case against the Ramseys was officially over, that there simply wasn't enough evidence to go to trial. But that wasn't the truth. In 2013, court documents were finally unsealed, and the bombshell was staggering. The grand jury had, in fact, voted to indict both John and Patsy Ramsey. They believed there was enough evidence that the parents had committed child abuse that resulted in their daughter's death. But the DA simply refused to sign the indictment. He refused to prosecute, a decision that is still debated to this very day. So what kept that intruder theory alive despite the grand jury? It all came down to this: unknown male number 1, a DNA profile built from a drop of blood found in JonBenét's underwear and later matched to DNA on her long johns. It wasn't John Ramsey's, it wasn't his son's, it didn't belong to anyone in the family, it belonged to a ghost. And that ghost DNA became the center of the case. In 2008, a new DA, Mary Lacey, used what was then a groundbreaking technology called touch DNA. And based on those new results, she did something pretty much unheard of. She wrote a public letter to the Ramsey family, formally exonerating them and apologizing for everything they'd been through. For a moment, it seems like the case was finally closed. The family was innocent, but it wasn't that simple. Years later, other top forensic experts looked at the very same lab reports and came to a totally different conclusion. They argued the DNA wasn't from a single person. It was a complex mixture, and it absolutely did not prove the family was innocent. The science itself was now in dispute. This, right here, is why there's still hope for this case. You have to remember, back in 1996, DNA technology was in its infancy. Today, it's like science fiction. We now have things like advanced genetic genealogy, which uses public DNA databases to build a suspect's family tree from the tiniest traces of evidence. It's the exact same tech they used to finally catch the Golden State Killer. Over the decades, the sheer scale of this investigation has been absolutely massive. Police have chased down more than 21,000 separate tips and leads. They've interviewed more than 1,000 people, analyzed hundreds and hundreds of DNA samples. And yet, after all of that work, all of that time, the case is still officially unsolved. To this day, it remains an active, open homicide investigation in Boulder, Colorado. The file has never been closed. Which leaves us with the one final haunting question. We have the killer's genetic fingerprint. We have forensic tools more powerful than ever imagined. So why? After all this time, all this technology, all this scrutiny, why does one of the most famous murder cases in America still remain unsolved?